Uncanny Valley of Sound. Horror is an art made up of many parts. Many people's thoughts go through the visual aspect of horror, be it monster design, a gory atmosphere, or how important lighting is. However, what fascinates me more is how sound is used in it, and why certain sounds disturb us more than others. I've been a huge fan of digital and analog horror lately, along with the idea of found footage. While I may not be a fan of Never Show the Monster, because to me, glimpses of it are important, and monster design is an art in and of itself, I know that sounds can be an effective tool in horror to build anticipation for it, either through music or the sounds the monster itself makes. The questions I want you to think about here are why some sounds are off to us and send shivers down our spines. But more than scary music, because while that is important and a subject I adore, that's not really the point of this video. What makes a sound uncanny to us? We know the roar of a monster can be off-putting, or certain things a serial killer may say, but those are defined sounds that are not off. We know the source, whereas with the Uncanny Valley, something is not quite right. In fact, that subject too is something primarily one may think of visually. There's a video from Vsauce, for example, called Why Are Things Creepy? That dives into the Uncanny Valley, but with examples that are primarily visual. In this video, I want to tackle the Uncanny Valley of sound. Sounds that are just not quite right, but almost right, which makes them very creepy. Auditory illusions. The first thing I think of when it comes to auditory illusions is the trumpets in Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 is a first-person shooter by Valve. It's the aftermath of an alien invasion triggered by a scientist messing with an artifact, which opened a portal. You play around the Earth trying to liberate it from the multidimensional aliens. I myself have never played the game, as I'm not an FPS player, but wanted to give a little background on where this sound came from. A very short background out of the way, let's get into the specific sound. Have a listen. This auditory illusion was very off-putting when I first heard it. You think there is something coherent being said there. Human speech. You try to make out the words, only to find it is nothing. The grainy sound adds to it, as does the music at the end and the light screeching. It leaves a hollow, empty, and uncanny feeling. I never even played the game, and can feel just how heavy it is. How, even if you think there's talking, no one is actually there. There are no words, no humans. It's just your brain thinking someone's talking. Another good example of hearing things that aren't there is MIDI files. A MIDI file is the musical instrument digital interface format of a sound file. They explain what notes are being played to the program, when, and how long. That means all notes in a song can be played by a piano if it's loaded that way. For this next part, I suggest you pause the video and listen to Stayin' Alive by Bees Gees. I'm new to this, and not sure if this would count as fair use. I will give you 5 seconds to pause and go do so. Otherwise, keep listening. Now, here is a section of the MIDI file for the same song. I will have the link to the full video on this below, but I wanted to dive in and talk about this. Could you hear anything unusual? Most people will hear the audio illusion of lyrics being sung when, in reality, nothing is being sung at all. It's very creepy when you realize you're listening to phantom sounds and nothing is there. Your brain makes you think you're hearing the singing, but you're not. Similarly, your brain may be able to pick up words where there just isn't any, like in this next sound clip. That was a sound file I made, a bunch of files of me whispering, overlapping with one another, but I was saying nothing at all, just gibberish. Your brain may have made out some words, or tried to, but I wasn't saying anything specific, just gibberish. With stimulus like that, it can be very uncanny as there is no meaning, but the brain is trying to find something in it. You may hear incorrect things as well. Take a look at this. Ba. 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 You hear me saying ba, right? I'm showing my original video of me saying it, but this next one is a bit different. Ba. 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 It may have sounded like va to your brain, but it was the same file as before. Now, let's watch them side by side. Ba. 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 That is the McGurk effect. You can't even trust your own ears, which is quite uncanny. Auditory illusions fascinate me, because you're hearing things that just aren't there, or trying to find meaning that isn't there in the things you're hearing. You're hearing something not quite right, just like looking at a quote-unquote realistic human doll. They almost look like they should be real, but they aren't. In this case, these sounds sound like they should be there, or should sound like something, but aren't. Backwards/altered music and speech. I was very fascinated as a child when learning about the Beatles song Revolution 9. First, this entire song is super haunting, just with a bunch of very off-putting sounds in it. They use background music and sound in this song on the regular. It adds to the creep factor. This song and entire situation could be considered an ARG by today's standards, and it would be the first one I learned about. For context, the Beatles hid a bunch of messages in their songs and art implying Paul was dead. At the end of the song Strawberry Fields Forever, John says, "I buried Paul," which was another hidden message. Paul was, of course, not dead, despite the hidden messages everywhere. Bear in mind, this song came out in 1968. I would argue the origin of ARGs started long before the modern era, given that. Anyway, moving on from the idea of ARGs, let's focus on the sound itself. Revolution 9 was a creepy song and very unique for its time, but how does it fit here? Well, beyond the fact that, as I saw someone describe it, Revolution 9 sounds like one of those mental breakdown scenes in movies when a character is going insane. And that it has a ton of backwards music. The lyric, number 9, is key here. Why? When said that way, if you reverse it, it sounds like Turn Me On, Dead Man. Here's an example.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
And reverse. I wanted to give it a shot, so here's my attempt. Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, and reverse. Now, I may not have exactly gotten it completely right, but my accent is a little bit off. You get the point. I sounded close enough to the Turn Me On, Dead Man thing. There's just something off-putting about it that I love. It definitely falls into the realm of uncanny. That's the case for other soundtracks or music, too. I'm a gamer myself and grew up playing Diablo 1. There was always this one song in the game that threw me off as a child. It's in the original soundtrack, and the song title is Catacombs. There's 2 parts I want to highlight: the laughing and the crying. Neither the laughing or crying in that track were normal by any means. They were both modified and sound super off, but you can somewhat tell it's supposed to be laughter or crying. Well, the laughing part. The crying part, as people describe it, is not something I ever actually heard. Well, I heard it, but not as everyone else or how it intended to be. I always heard it as some high-pitched roar or screech of a demon. Listening again now that I'm older, I do hear it as a modified infant crying, but the suspension of disbelief can be super strong. Even regular speech in reverse sounds pretty creepy. Here's a random backwards clip of me saying something, and it just sounds uncanny and unnatural. The Uncanny Valley factor hits heavy here, because you know it should be regular human speech, but it's very off. This applies to music as well, beyond just the mentioned Beatles song. Backwards music is also quite uncanny. Have a listen to a part of Moonlight Sonata in reverse. There's always something about music played backwards that throws me off. That includes things with just instruments, not speech, which adds to the creep factor. The instrumentals on their own work perfectly fine in this valley as well. Something's just not right. Mimicry. Animals, monsters, machines. Some birds are remarkable mimics. The first thing people may think of are parrots, who can mimic speech quite well. But, quoth the raven,
Hello, Terry. Hello, Terry. Hello, Terry. Come on, 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 Terry.
Bravo, Terry.
Yes!
What we see there is a very cool demonstration of the raven's ability to mimic human speech. Not many people think of these birds when it comes to bird mimicry, but they have a remarkable ability to do so. Still, you can tell this isn't a human speaking, though if you heard it in the dead of night, you may be tricked. Unintentional mimicry can also apply. The mountain lion, for example, has a very human woman-like scream that can be very off-putting to hear. Now, just to destroy any misconceptions, the mountain lions aren't intentionally doing that or evolved to do so to lure in humans. Humans aren't really on the mountain lion diet, it's a mating call. But that's an example of an animal that sounds a lot like a woman screaming. Foxes do this as well. There's plenty of examples in nature of either intentional or unintentional mimicry that sounds like us. It leads to good stories and monsters, such as shapeshifters or mimics. Speaking of which, monsters with mimicry show up especially in modern internet horror. One piece of internet horror I enjoy is the Mandela Catalog. Here's a recreation from yours truly. Let me in, Mark.
I have a gift for you.
I have a present. I have a surprise. That's the part I found the most off-putting. Context is relevant as well. It's an alternate, or a monster taking the form of another person. There, going around trying to destroy people. I think. People tended to do it to themselves, if I remember correctly, in that series. The point is, though, that the glitch voices caused me to feel very off-put, which fits for the series very well. Finally, with the growth of AI, I wanted to give it a quick mention for its merit in horror. This does not mean I am advocating it as a replacement for human voices. That would be like setting myself on fire. Rather, as a medium trying to sound human but being not quite right, it works quite well for a creep factor that most people couldn't capture with their natural voices. That robotic tone and feel of the voice fits well for sci-fi horror. Have a listen of something I say versus an AI voice. Hello there. I am totally human and not a text-to-speech generator. Please trust me, I am definitely human.
Hello there, I am totally a human and not a text-to-speech generator. Please trust me, I am definitely human.
Clearly, I did not go searching for ones that use realism, but even then, people have said they can tell when something is being read by AI versus a real human. That's good for real human narrators like me. That said, in a medium where humans aren't harmed, things like this can be beneficial to the genre. You can find some really creepy text-to-speech or AI voices out there, which are uncanny and fit for monsters. Phantom radio signals. I've always been fascinated by radio broadcast interruptions and what could be the cause of them. I chalk it up to pranks or hoaxes most of the time, but every so often I wonder if there's a paranormal answer for them. I will never find that out, to be fair, but they definitely can be incredibly creepy. The first thing that comes to mind is the WKCR hijacking. To give some background, it was a hijacking in 1995, my birth year, where a woman was reading an obituary. Well, several obituaries. Scare Theater did an awesome cover of it, and I highly recommend their video. For the purpose of this one, I'll do a recreation, as it may be copywritten. That said, the original sound will be linked in the description of this video. Warning for high-pitched sounds. Here we go. Kathleen, age 18, March 25th, 1911. Mary Ackerman, age 20, March 25th, 1911. Rosa Lalo, age 16, March 25th, 1911. Mary Albanese, age 17, March 25th, 1911. Mary Alferry, age 18, March 25th, 1911. Angela Altamira, March 25th, 1911, age 17. Mary Apperson, age 16, March 25th, 1911. Louise Amuso, age 17, March 25th, 1911. Anna Ernesto, age 22, March 25th, 1911. Now, my recreation isn't exact. I didn't use the same obituaries. I used a different incident that was very harrowing in the United States history. I was very freaked out the first time I heard the WKCR hijacking, and to this day it's still very off-putting. Also, fun fact in the comments section of this video that shares it, the one I linked, they say they heard it was a prank. Like I said, I assume these are all hoaxes, but it doesn't matter in the context of just plain sounding creepy. You know that I did just the recreation for this video, yeah, and I certainly hope I managed to capture the creep factor of the original. Even if it was a prank, which is not confirmed, that's just a word-by-mouth comment, the horror media should keep itself up on its own very creepy feet, otherwise it just isn't totally effective. In this case, in my opinion, it does. The uncanny valley factor of it is just not feeling right, really does still apply. Then, there are the number stations, which are suspected to be coordinates for spies or other things. You can find them all over YouTube, and listen to their repeated numbers sometimes in a more robotic tone than others. They are very mysterious, as the reasons for some of them is still not quite known. I wanted to mention them in general, rather than dive into specifics here. Some of those stations have music that's just out of sync or just weird, and which feels very uncanny valley on its own, which relates to the next section. Off-key music. Some weird off-key music plays during a segment covered by Nexpo. I linked the entire video in my credits for my description as well, but take a listen to this clip. It wasn't interrupted broadcasts like those in the last section, but the off-key music is what I wanted to point out here. It's odd and uncanny, which works very well in horror. It also wasn't a one-time incident. I strongly encourage you to check out that video by Nexpo if you want to find out more. Anyway, what do I mean when I'm talking about music that's off-key or out of sync? Well, some horror channels that flash creepy images with creepy music use these pieces in their videos. One good example is this song from Undertale. Your brain recognizes the sound. It tries to make sense of the sound, and tries to make the sound correct. However, when you actually hear it, and your brain compares the sound that you're hearing versus the sound you think it should be, it creates that conflict which then builds that unease. This applies to music that's massively slowed down. Think of the SpongeBob theme slowed by 800%. I will play a brief clip of that here and link the video it came from. It turns from cheeky fun to something absolutely alarming, especially the parts where the kids are speaking. I'll even play a piece of me singing a regular nursery rhyme, and then slow it down. It just goes from someone who's trying to sound okay with singing to someone who sounds, well, deranged. Ring around the rosy pockets full of posy ashes and we all fall down. Ring around the rosy, pockets full of posy, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Distortion effects on all of these things work super well. So, what is the uncanny valley of sound? With all the examples here, it's been related to humans, be it our voice or creations that just ring is not quite right. What makes the uncanny valley of sound different from animalistic noises that wouldn't be included in the mimicry section is the relation to humans as a species. We look into, for these various states of sound and horror, the human music and voice, and something being off about it. Just like with the uncanny valley of visual media, the uncanny valley of sound can be just right in a horror project to capture things. A lot of people focus on scary music, which has its own merit and likely long discussion for its own video. I was happy to explore this valley with you as my first video essay on the topic. I hope you enjoyed. If you want more of this content, please comment. Also, what are some of your favorite examples of the uncanny valley in sound? Have a nice night or day, whatever it is for you folks.